is income property? This is not an abstract issue. This was decided by the voters of Washington State when they enacted Amendment 14 to the Constitution in 1930. And the express purpose of that amendment was to expand the definition of property to cover everything, whether tangible or intangible, subject to ownership. And income meets all three of those tests. And every Supreme Court panel that's looked at the question has reached the same conclusion. Income is subject to ownership. It is part of everything. It is an intangible. So this decision was not decided by philosophers. This decision that income is property was decided by the voters of Washington State, who wanted a property tax that would be as extensive as possible, that would reach every form of intangible property: stocks, bonds, money, income, all of it. That's why they didn't put a list of items in the definition of property that said, well, this is property, and this is property, and this is property. They said everything, tangible and intangible, subject to ownership, is property. So unless you think you don't have an ownership interest in your income, you have to see that income, in fact, is part of property. Now, in 1934, just a year after the first Supreme Court decision striking down a graduated income tax, the voters had a chance to amend the Constitution again. They were presented with a constitutional amendment that would have excluded income from the definition of property. They rejected it by a wide margin. And just as they rejected 5 subsequent constitutional amendments that would have made a graduated income tax possible. So the voters clearly preferred this broad definition of property that encompasses income from just within, reaffirmed that within just a few years of the original amendment being adopted.